Well, hello everybody. Welcome along to another instalment of the Under the Apple Tree podcast. You join me here again in Apple Tree Studios. Thanks very much for tuning in. I hope everybody's okay. And this week I'm actually joined by a very special guest in the studio because Mr. Eric Brace is here with me. Hey Eric.
Hello, Miles.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Hello, Apple Tree. Apple. You're gonna have to have, like Grateful Dead has dead heads and fish heads. You're gonna have to have like apple heads.
Apple heads, like that.
Except the Beatles label might.
Yeah.
They might have issue with that.
Well, we'll work it out. Anyway.
It wasn't called Under the Apple Tree when I was here last time.
No. Well, this is a new occurrence. Although I know that we recorded a little session with you last time you were here, which we will be hearing later on, which is going to be very nice. But you're here actually on the inaugural Under the Apple Tree podcast. You were one of our featured recommendations.
I love it.
Yeah. I think it must be the very first musical of the week that Bob's ever done on his show.
He's not a man for musicals generally, it's true.
Well, he took an exception with yours, which is very good.
I'm grateful.
And it's called Hangtown Dancehall. Again, we'll be linking everything below in what we're calling the WHAMMY bar, which is just below everything. So the WHAMMY bar, you head down there and find out loads of information about Eric's lovely musical, which we see beside us as well, if you're watching at the same time.
A bit of show and tell.
Yes,
I'm picking it up for those of you listening only. I'm picking up it's basically a CD booklet, but it's kind of a large size because I had to create a booklet for it that was... there's so many words to it. I had to explain the whole story. It's called Hangtown Dancehall, and it's the story... it's set in the California Gold Rush, and... it's just the story of Betsy and Ike, two youngsters who head out for the gold rush and get separated because Ike is an angry hothead and Betsy, well, they just get into a fight. And so what happens is they head off in their separate directions, and then the case of mistaken identity, I like to think it's Shakespearean. Somebody gets buried... They're dead. It's not like buried alive. It's not like, one of those horrible movies. But... it's not Ike. Spoiler alert, he's alive and well, and they get together at the end and live happily ever after.
Wonderful. I think it's such a great concept because there are two parts to it, really, weren't there? Because the town that you grew up in was actually Hangtown, wasn't it?
It was Hangtown. Yeah. I was born in a town called Placerville, California, and Placerville's original name in 1849, when the 49ers went out to California, was called Hangtown, and Hangtown was right in the dead center, so to speak, of where gold was discovered, and it was a particularly violent time, and so when anything went wrong, people were eager to string somebody up by a loop and a rope, and that's how justice was meted out. And so they actually did call it Hangtown. That was its official name for about 3 years. I know, it's kind of morbid and crazy, but now it's called, well, starting in 1852, it was called Placerville.
Okay,
and that's where I was born. And so the idea of the gold rush was always in the back of my head as a little boy. The way that those stories, the mythology of, let's go dig around in a ditch or in a creek bed. And so my brother and I and my sister, every time we'd go out on a family picnic, we always dug around and tried to find little nuggets of gold, but
to no avail.
To no avail at all.
That's unfortunate.
Got our fingers dirty.
It was funny because you showed me a photo of one of the old restaurants there that was in Hangtown. What was it called again?
It's called the Hanging Tree.
Yeah,
it's a bar and cafe there. Yeah. It's been around for a long time, and when I was a kid, and it's right over Main Street, right? I mean, it's on Main Street, and driving up and down, you couldn't help noticing that there was a gallows beam hanging over Main Street, and from the gallows was a rope, and from the rope was a man. I mean, to my little boy's eyes, it seemed, I thought it was a real person, but it was a dummy hanging over Main Street, life size, and it's crazy. And about 10 years ago, they took it down. They were refurbishing the bar, and they took it down, and they thought it was going to be permanently taken down, but there was such an outcry. It had become beloved.
People revolted.
This corpse, as it were, hanging over Main Street, had become this beloved symbol of Hangtown past. Yeah. So they put it back up.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that's great. And because you're saying the actual idea for the musical, along with you being from the town that it's based in, was there was an old song, wasn't there? That was
it's a folk song.
Yeah, it's called Sweet Betsy from Pike, wasn't it?
Exactly.
And just tell me, because you said that it ended kind of abruptly, and you thought that the story should have gone on. Is that how the idea came about? Well,
exactly. When I was first thinking about writing songs about the gold rush, I didn't have a particular story in mind. There were so many different stories you could tell. There was Black Bart, the stagecoach robber. There was Juan Murrieta, the Latin thief. There was Lola Montez, the foreign dancer who came to entertain the miners. But I was looking for one overarching story to tell, and I started listening to some of the songs that had been written back then in the 1850s, and there are a few that have survived over the years. Things like "My Darling Clementine," "Oh my darling, oh my darling,"
Oh, my
and
darling Clementine.
the other that's probably the most famous. And the other more or less famous one is the Sweet Betsy from Pike, and it's one of those typical folk songs that have 20 verses, and it's about Betsy and Ike, and it's a nice little waltz that goes, "Do you remember Sweet Betsy from Pike across the wide prairie with her lover Ike, with 2 yoke of oxen and 1 yeller dog and an old Shanghai rooster and 1 spotted hog, singing Turai Lurai Lurai." So it's set to this Irish tune, but it's a really American tune, and it tells the story of Betsy and Ike on a wagon train, having all these adventures with Indians and drought and running into Mormons and crossing the Sierra Nevada mountains, and it goes on and on and on and on and on, just like my description of it does. Except imagine it going on 10 times longer than this. And so what happens, it says they crossed over the hill into Old Placerville, and then the last verse is them going to a miners' dance, and Betsy dances with some other miners to Ike's Great Fury, and he gets mad at her, and she says, "Well, then get out of here, you big ox." And he storms off. And that's the end of the song. They just split up.
Unceremonious.
Unceremonious, exactly. And considering, literally, they had a ceremony in what's now Nebraska. They had gotten married. Yeah. And so they just split up as soon as they get there. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird and kind of sad. You know, they split up as soon as they get there after walking for about... the trip took about... 3 or 4 months at the time to walk 2,000 miles.
Well,
that's what you do. You walk at the pace of the mules that are hauling the wagons.
Yeah.
But then the mules start walking about the pace of the men who are whipping them with a switch. But so I got together with a friend of mine in Washington, D.C. named Carl Straub, who's a great talent, and I knew that he had a different kind of sensibility about songs, more storytelling than mine, and he helped me shape my ideas, and then we both wrote about 20 songs and turned it into this, Hangtown Dancehall, and it's the story of Betsy and Ike, and they find each other. They live happily ever after.
It's good. No, it was great. And actually, Bob and I were saying on the first episode of this that we went to the premiere evening that was held in Nashville, which was just absolutely fantastic.
It was the timing was perfect. You all had just landed. It was November 2nd, I'll say 2013, since this is going to live forever on the internet. In 100 years, people are going to be...
They're still going to be listening to it. Oh, of course, yeah.
I'll say that. It was November 2nd, 2013, and we had people like Kelly Willis and Tim O'Brien and folks like that who sing on the record there, and it was great.
It was absolutely brilliant, yeah, it was. And you had a live narrator who was talking you through the story between the songs.
I'd never done anything like a musical before, and so I wasn't sure how the songs all had to connect as far as an audience goes. I mean, each song tells a part of the story, but then the narrator was talking in between the songs.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. So I've been trying to figure out how to turn it into a real musical, and we'll see if it can turn up on Broadway or West End. And
I'm sure it will. Yeah, it'll be the next Lion King.
Lion King. Annie. Tomorrow, there's always tomorrow.
Definitely.
That's all I know about. I really don't know anymore.
Never mind. Well, and actually, one of the musicians that was on stage with you that night as well was Peter Cooper.
That's right.
Who you write together and you tour together and things. And last time you were over here, our way, you came into this very studio and performed a fantastic live session for us, which we are all about to hear. So we're going to play a few songs that Eric and Peter performed live for us in studio. Now, just remind me that there are 3 songs that you performed.
Yep.
So tell us about the 3 that we heard.
We did 3 songs, and they're all from our most recent record, which is called the Comeback Album. And I should say to our listeners, it is it's all available at redbeetrecords.com. There's an agricultural theme. You got Under the Apple Tree. I've got Red Beet Records, which is beetroot for anybody listening.
Yes, exactly. We should start ourselves an orchard or organic food company.
Right.
Yeah. But links to that as well will all be down below in the WHAMMY bar. So
in the WHAMMY bar.
So check out Red
So
Beet
we
Records.
did Boxcars, and we did a song called Ancient History that's all about how you can change your identity. If you don't like who you are today, you can change things tomorrow. It works for everybody.
Yes.
And then there's a song called She Can't Be Herself, which Peter and his brother wrote about his brother's ex-wife.
Okay.
It's a sad story. Peter has a knack. He helped me with Boxcars also, and Boxcars is kind of about a sort of down on his luck, down and out young fella sitting at a bar, and all of these songs have something to do with fellas who have made some bad decisions in their life, and I just want to say that they're in no way autobiographical.
Good. No, of course not. So we're going to hear the session audio now. We're also going to hear a little bit of the interview that I did on my own radio show, Smokestack Radio, which was originally the session that they recorded for us, but we thought it was so good that we'd play it all for you guys again. So have fun listening to all that, and have a good time. But I suppose we should roll the tape now. Eric?
Is that called Under the Apple Tree too on YouTube?
It is indeed, yes.
Well, come back to the orchard sometime. Thank you, Miles.
Eric, lovely to see you as always.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Miles and Bob here under the apple tree. We've just been hearing Eric Brace and Miles having a good old conversation there.
Yes, we have. And we were talking about when he came in with Peter Cooper and performed 3 tracks live in the studio. Now, because this is a YouTube video, you won't be able to actually see the performance. So to hear it, what we want you to do is click in the whammy bar below and go through to download the podcast on iTunes. And you can hear all 3 performances that Eric and Peter Cooper did for us here under the apple tree. And aside from that, we're just basically saying to see you next time.
Yeah. Good to see you. So see you again soon.
Click below to download the podcast to hear Eric Brace and Peter Cooper.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.